It's July 26, 1976 in Anglo, in the north of France. In a parking lot where the heat is stifling, Michel Leclerc waits patiently. He is 26 years old, and today is the day his life is about to change. He has bet everything on his warehouse, months of preparation, all his savings, and a concept he firmly believes in. He thought big. He sent invitations to all the industry leaders. The giants are expected: Adidas, Puma, Le Coq Sportif. The champagne is chilled. The ribbons are ready to be cut, and yet no one is coming. Michel looks at the entrance of the parking lot. Nothing. Total silence. The big brands spread the word. Don't deliver to this kid. Don't come. Let him rot in his parking lot. They want to kill the brand he wants to launch before it even takes its first breath. It's a public humiliation and an act of irreversible violence. Michael is alone in front of his empty shelves while the ice melts in the champagne buckets. He goes home, but he's not sad. He feels a clear, lucid rage. He decides to make a decision that will change the French economy for the next 50 years. Since no one wants to sell me their products, I'll make my own, and I'll wipe you off the map. This decision will wipe out hundreds of independent stores and force the giant Nike to beg for a small spot on its shelves. Hi, Entrepreneur Mindset team. I hope you're doing well. Today, we're diving into the story of Decathlon, a story of immense French success, but also of revenge, ruthless domination, and a war machine that ended up devouring its own masters. Before we start, Entrepreneur Mindset is now available as a podcast on all platforms. Find all the entrepreneurial stories that have shaped our era. Whether you're driving or working out, the link is in the description. Michel Leclerc is not an unknown who came out of nowhere. To understand this, you just have to look at his family. His mother is a Moulier, the sister of the founder of Auchan. In other words, he belongs to one of the most powerful, wealthiest, and most secretive dynasties in Europe. But be careful, in this clan, they don't hand you an empire on a silver platter. They give you just enough to start and see if you survive. In 1976, Decathlon is just a small, risky experiment in a corner that the elders of the family look at with skepticism. For Michel, the stakes are twofold. He's not just risking his money, he's putting his name and his credibility on the line in front of one of the most ruthless families in France. His idea is to create a sports supermarket. Everything for everyone, all under one roof. At the time, that doesn't exist. You buy your sneakers in a small downtown shop and your bike from a specialist who looks down on you. Michel, on the other hand, wants to break all the rules. July 27, 1976. As you know now, it's a flop. Leclerc invited the heads of Adidas, Puma, and Le Coq Sportif for the opening of his warehouse in Anglos. And yet, no one comes. The sports giants have spread the word. Total boycott. They want to kill off the little cousin before he even sells his first ball. Michael finds himself alone in his parking lot, facing empty shelves with humiliation that reaches all the way to the ears of his own clan. For anyone else, it would have been the end. For him, it was the starting signal for guerrilla warfare. Since the brands were slamming the door in his face, he would go through the window. During the first years, Michel Leclerc played the pirate. He takes his truck, crosses the border, and goes to see wholesalers in Belgium or Germany. They don't care at all about the Parisian boycott. Michel loads his boxes at night, drives for hours on the highway, and unloads his Adidas shoes or Puma balls himself. In the early morning there, at a rest area, with a tired face, he has the realization that will change everything. I bleed myself dry to buy their products. I take all the risks to distribute them, and in return, they look down on me. I'm building their empire, not mine. This is the tipping point. In the utmost secrecy, Decathlon begins to change. They no longer want to be sellers, but creators. They open laboratories, hire engineers, and start dissecting every seam, every alloy in bicycle frames. It's the birth of a war machine hidden behind the facade of a supermarket. It's 1996. Marc is 34 years old, and he's the king of his little world in Lille. His store is his baby. Marc is the guy who explains to you why this shoe will save your knees. He sells Salomon, Wilson, and his customers are loyal. Then the rumor spreads. A Decathlon is coming 5 kilometers away. Marc smiles. Let them do it. It's just blue plastic for Sunday tourists. At that moment, Marc makes the biggest mistake of his life, because just a few kilometers away, Michel Leclerc hasn't forgotten anything. Warm champagne from 1976. He understood something that Marc doesn't know. If you depend on others to fill your shelves, you have a rope around your neck. At first, Michel's group offers basic products simply labeled Decathlon. Bags, water bottles, bikes that have no soul. Mark laughs to himself. For him, it's low-end stuff that doesn't threaten his luxury brands at all. But that year, everything changes. Michel Leclerc shifts into high gear. He doesn't just want to sell cheap products anymore. He wants to create worlds. That's when Quechua for the mountains and Tribor for the sea are born. These are no longer supermarket products, but brands. Passion. One Saturday in 1997, a regular customer of Mark walks into his shop. He looks at a Salomon mountain jacket priced at 250 euros, hesitates, and says, "Listen, Mark, I saw the same one at Decathlon for 80 euros. He calls it Quechua, and it looks sturdy. Mark tries to talk about prestige, technical features, heritage, but the customer just wants to take his kids hiking without breaking the bank. Mark's argument collapses in front of the receipt. In 1997, Decathlon crossed the colossal milestone of 10 billion French francs. To give you an idea, that's the equivalent of 1.5 billion euros. Today, Mark is alone in his store, which feels empty. He looks at his Salomon and Wilson invoices, and he realizes the horror. His suppliers are selling him their products at a higher price than the price at which Decathlon resells theirs. He's no longer fighting against a competitor. He's fighting against a system that has decided to wipe him off the map. And the worst part is that this phase of massive destruction isn't even over yet. Mark ended up handing over the keys. He sold off his last pairs of Salomon, shook hands with his 3 employees, and left without looking back. 5 kilometers away, in the parking lot of the Decathlon in Anglos, it's bustling like on big days. The contrast is stark. Mark is not an exception. That year, all over France, sports shops that had been around for 30 years were closing down one after another. It's not because of the crisis or even bad luck. It's simply the result of a strategy no one saw coming: colonization by emptiness. Decathlon understood a ruthless rule of urban planning. They don't search for you in the city, with high rents and narrow streets. They set up on the outskirts, in gray industrial zones, where land costs nothing. They build 3,000 square meter warehouses where the car is king. Their arrival in a city is an overnight earthquake. The average price of a racket or a shoe in an area drops by 30%. For guys like Mark, it's the beginning of the end. They have just 2 choices, both ending in the morgue. Either they lower their prices and die within minutes, with no more profit margin, or they keep their prices and watch their customers cross the street. To go across the street, there is no third option. But the real stroke of genius, the real black magic of Leclerc, are the brands Passion, Quechua, Tribor, Between. Look closely. These names don't scream Decathlon. It's perfect camouflage. When you buy a Quechua fleece, your brain doesn't tell you that you're buying a supermarket product. It tells you a story of snowy peaks and bivouacs. It's a perfectly legal, precise lie that breaks the sea, the last stronghold of the big brands. Prestige, that's called marketing done to perfection. Decathlon doesn't copy the giants, but makes them useless for ordinary people. Why pay 120 euros for the logo of an American brand when you have the same thing and sometimes even better? From personal experience, all my sports equipment comes from Decathlon and costs 30 euros. With a name that sounds like a mountain adventure, millions of people do the math, and the verdict is brutal. The expansion becomes crazy. France, Spain, Italy, China, India, Brazil. The script is the same everywhere. They open a warehouse, undercut prices, introduce their brands, and wait for the local market to collapse so they can take over. In 2010, they already had 800 stores. By 2020, they surpassed 1,500. Until now, the big players like Nike or Adidas look down on this. For them, Decathlon was just the minor leagues, gear for beginners. But that year, in Nike's colorful offices, an executive receives an internal report. He scans the columns of numbers. He stops. His coffee grows cold. In Europe, in certain key categories, a French minor league brand has just sold more items than the giant with the swoosh. In terms of volume, Nike is no longer number 1. He picks up his phone. The time for revenge from 1976 has officially arrived, and this time, it's Decathlon holding the whip. In Beaverton, Oregon, at Nike's headquarters, on the walls, giant screens display plunging graphs around the table. The European directors look grim. The situation is humiliating in entire market categories. Hiking, fitness, swimming. Consumers no longer have the red reflex, they have the blue and white reflex. Someone finally asked the question no one dared to say out loud. Shouldn't we, in the end, try to sell our products at their stores? The silence that follows is heavy, because that's exactly where Michel Leclerc was waiting for the giants. He spent 40 years building the most powerful toll gate in Europe. 1,500 stores, tens of millions of customers walking through the doors every weekend. The traffic is so huge that even Nike, with its billions in marketing budget, can no longer afford to ignore it. So the big players line up. Nike, Adidas, Puma. They all want their piece of the pie. They want a spot in the warehouses. Decathlon, he smiles, opens the door for them. But be careful, it's not an invitation to dinner. It's an ambush. Here's how the trap works. You're Nike, you sign with Decathlon. You're all happy to be listed. But when you get to the store, you find out that your shoes are pushed all the way to the back. Left section, last aisle, stuck between the ping pong balls and the badminton nets. Meanwhile, right at the entrance, under perfect spotlights, at eye level, you find the Kipsa shoe, the store's own brand. It's beautiful, it shines, and above all, it has an outrageous price. 40 euros. Right next to it, your Nike is priced at 120 euros. The customer isn't stupid, he compares. What he doesn't know is that Decathlon makes 6 times more money by selling the pair of Kipsa for 40 euros than your pair of Nike for 120 euros. Decathlon has pulled off the heist of the century. They've taken over as the field referee and opposing captain. You play on their turf, but they control the final score. For big brands, it's a strategic nightmare. Refusing to be at Decathlon means becoming invisible to millions of people. Accepting means becoming the foil. It means paying to get cut down. And the results come down hard, like blows from a stick. Go Sport, which we'll talk about soon, if you're interested, let me know in the comments, collapses. 2,300 jobs lost. Nike announces major cuts in its global workforce. Adidas reports its worst year in 20 years. And meanwhile, in the north of France, they're counting the money. 15.6 billion euros in revenue, a historic record. Decathlon is no longer satisfied with just Europe. It's targeting Asia, digital, everything. The humiliation of 1976 has been erased. Parkingville has become a global empire that leaves only crumbs for the others. Ask yourself, when you last needed sneakers for your child, a tent for summer, or a swimsuit, where did you go? Without anyone ever launching it, Decathlon has built a world where there aren't many alternatives left. Today, the brand has the power of life or death over a sport. If tomorrow the headquarters decides that squash or handball aren't profitable enough, these sports could simply disappear from our lives. No more balls, no more rackets, nothing left because there's no one else to keep them alive. We're not just talking about a store anymore. We're talking about an infrastructure. A network that covers the planet, over 1,500 stores, 60 countries. A massive push in India to reach the next billion athletes. Decathlon isn't competing anymore. It has no rivals left. Now it's aiming to be the sole place for sport worldwide, though this comes with casualties. In 20 years, France has lost 40% of its independent sports stores. Historic brands that were truly innovative have disappeared in total indifference. In 1976, Michel Leclerc was 26 years old. He was looking at an empty parking lot. And he didn't necessarily want to change the world, he just wanted to get revenge on those who had looked down on him. He succeeded at both. While Decathlon dominated the physical world with its warehouses and blue aisles, a quieter predator was rising in the digital world's shadows. Because there is a company that doesn't set up on the outskirts of your cities, but directly in your children's minds. It doesn't make products that last, but ones that expire in 24 hours. This company is Shein, and it relies on a secret algorithm that has destroyed fast fashion, as you can see in the video that's showing.